going to get more into that as we look at methods of doing so. Collaboration. It's an easy one, but a hard one. Nowadays, there's so many amazing agencies doing so many wonderful, really impact-driving things that you've got to be connected with them. No man is an island, and no agency is either. No matter how good and great your agency is, cannot possibly account for all the needs and diverse needs of the human condition, right? So you need those collaborators. More and more now it's pretty standard practice, where they want to know, detail your connections to the community, detail your connections to the organizations that are also doing this. How are you being synergistic and not duplicative? In the end, it reduces the impact on who? The participants that you're serving. So you want to bring those partners in. We'll talk about that in the budget as well. All of that has to be part of the budget, and it has to be part of the budget narrative, right? Now we're going to get into the meat of what we're here for. Program design is derived from the needs and the rationale. What do we mean by that? How can the design come from the needs?
The program design is your articulation of how you're going to meet the need, solve the problem, improve existing measurable.
Exactly. And with so many issues that we all deal with, right, you can't look at fixing everything. For example, we go to Girls Inc. again, or Girls Club. You can't do everything with girls, but I'm going to do this, and this is the part of the solution because of this, right? You have to break it down because you have to make it realistic, right? Program design should be about best practices, and the design has to be aligned with the program rationale or why. This is crucial. Again, it's the story, it's the alignment, right? There's a problem. These are the problems. We are focusing on this part of the problem. When you're talking about children and mental health in the school system, or young adults with disabilities and mental health issues, there's a lot of different practitioners. You have to detail and scope out what your role, what your program, and what you're proposing will be part of the problem. The more specific you are about that, the more convincing your proposal is that you are the right person to do X within this population or this problem area. Right? When we're talking about senior citizens, you can't help osteoporosis, you can't help maybe other issues that aren't related to community gardening. But what does community gardening do for older adults? Focus on that and give it what you've got to really highlight that aspect. Again, research. Research a problem with an emphasis on promising best practice models or pilots addressing the same need. Don't limit your focus to the region or to this country. There's a lot of amazing programs taking place all over the world, particularly Canada and Australia. They have quite a different framework of addressing social services than the United States does. A lot of amazing programs coming out, small programs. So definitely look at all your models, because again, you're trying to prove why you are the entity that's going to be the change and make the change in this issue area that this funder cares about. So you have to, again, know what's out there, what's working, what's kind of humdrum, it's been going on for a long time, not really amazing results, but it's generalizable. What's really good, what's really showing promise, and then also, what's lacking? I've asked for grants, sexual and reproductive health with immigrant women in Spanish. 10 years ago, nobody was doing that work in Atlanta. And so I had to substantiate the lack of, and so what did I do? I actually started looking at PhD dissertations in the field. Because what did they say? They said, promising best practice needed in this area. And I had to use stats of how many PhD dissertations I looked at, that was their conclusion. We need programs like this. We need funders to fund programs like this. There weren't any. Maybe one or two in LA. They do a lot more work in that area in Spanish. So again, 10 years later, we're the leaders in the Southeast. Right? And I started out with 35,000. So that's a very good tool. The lack of can also be a really good thing in your corner. Again, cannot emphasize enough, the methodology of the program has to be aligned with the program budget. The methods have to correlate with the funding sought.
I can use clicker.
You can be my clicker. I'm going to stop on the model, on the methods for a second to remind you, as you should remind yourself and remind your team if you're lucky enough to have a team helping you, right? That you're telling a story, right? This is about taking your reader, your funder, on a journey that is well thought, it's sequential, logical to the problem you've just detailed in the scope or the need. If the funder can't see him or herself participating in the program, or somebody that they know participating in the program, that's a problem. Okay, so you want, as you're telling this, the needs and going through the methods, the design, the logistics of it, how are you going to see if it's working or not? How are you going to adjust and course correct? You want your funder to be able to see him or herself, or his or her children, using that program. Okay, whether it's reading, whether it's chess, ballet, financial literacy for college planning in middle school, whatever it is, you have to provide that journey. So you have to use power words, impact words. There's metrics, but then there's also connecting all of that. Methodology has to be presented and written in a way that they can see themselves participating. It flows not just the methods, but also logistics. Time and time again in my own programs and programs I've worked with, it's the logistics that bogs it down. It's not thinking about transportation. Transportation is the bane of every small nonprofit's existence. It's 3, 4, 5 times as costly to get kids anywhere, or senior citizens anywhere, or people with disabilities anywhere, than it is as 3 full-time staff to help, right? But it's the logistics that make or break it. Because again, your funder, I've read a lot of proposals where it's like, I don't get that from this. How is this going to happen? How are they going to go? Who's going to take them? So the logistics have to be a strong part, but they're a concise part, right? They're very concise, but they have to be there. So the method has to be detailed of the design itself, and then you have to think about, if it's a program with kids, who's going to get the kids to A? How are we going to check the kids in? How are we going to get them settled? How are we going to get, you have to think of that. And one of my examples that I think of is connecting the dots is looking at if you're planning a big trip, right, to Disney World, and people are coming in from all over the country. They're driving, they're flying, your family members, and you're the coordinator. How are you going to make it simple? It's kind of, those are check-in questions to ask yourself while you're going through the process. The simplicity of the details, the logistics, they have to correlate with the conciseness of why this method will be effective. If the logistics are so cumbersome, what do readers think? It's just, I don't see this working. It's just not going to come together. So even as we know, we're dealing with a lot of really complex issues that have a lot of intersecting areas and a lot of intersecting needs. How are you making it concise and consistent so that all of it flows and the person can say, okay, I can see that really working out. Let me hear more. And then you get an invitation for what? That glorious site visit, right? Yeah. Any questions? We're just going to be delving into program design. Yes?
Are there limitations, and is it individually based on the funder as to the length of each of these, the story, the logistics?
Yes. There's more and more. There is a certain number of characters or words. You always want words, characters. 500 characters are up like that, right? You said 3 things. So yeah, more and more. It's very dependent.
To each funder.
Yeah, oh, you have to, because a lot of them, now you're submitting online and it's in their own format. So typically the more programs I'm working on is you're writing it in Word, and then you're copy and paste, you're doing your word count, you're getting those perfect number of words with the perfect essence of what you're saying, doing word count, and then copying and pasting into the body of their template through their submission portal. So again, all of that, a lot of times we have to say a lot in very few words, and it's really hard. Yes?
So I really recommend this. Use a thesaurus.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
And use adjectives in front of prepositional phrases, because prepositional phrases require a lot more characters. So search for that word that can be either an adjective or an adverb that better describes, right? So we always talk about these 2-word phrases that, they become buzzwords. Create your own 2-word phrases. They can say a lot.
Can you give an example or 2 of what you mean?
Probably not on the spot,
Okay.
just because my clients, it's different things, but our ability to utilize efficient sustainability rather than saying sustainability with a focus on program efficiency, right?
Right.
So some things are implicit right? If you utilize a thesaurus or if you get creative. And then the other thing is don't drown in impact. You know, there's a lot of ways that you can say impact without using the word impact 12 times in one paragraph, you know? And it's that kind of thing that won't bore the reader. And then don't put a phrase in there just because it's something everybody says.
Right,
That's the thing I always say is say something meaningful, throw out, these people, the reviewers, they read a lot of these. They, you know, just give them the nuts and bolts.
Right, that's very
They
good
get it.
advice. And they get a lot of proposals. I worked with Coca-Cola Global Foundation, I've been a recipient. By the time they get the final 5,000 that they will actually read, they'll have 55,000 submissions.
Yes.
And they do word scans
Yeah.
to get to those final ones, and then at that it's 5,000, right? So looking at the power words phrases, very important, yes.
Word scans on such as,
Like words, like resume word scans, will do proposal words, like they'll pick out where, of these submitted proposals, what, they're looking for specific words that signal to them that this is going to be a strong hitting proposal to what, targeting what we want, and that's just a new method that they're doing. So one of the things, just like with resumes, when you write, now there's so many tools for searching, there's a lot of tools online say that you can Google search words, impacting words or strong words for proposal writing. And you definitely want to do it. That's why it's not a last minute thing also, because you want to give yourself that finessing, editing, and distilling it to the most impactful, catalyzing words.
Oh,
right?
that's a beautiful
Wow.
one.
and you actually want
Look
to,
up that word catalyze. It's a great word.
You know, Maria brings up a good point. This is where, in addition to using power words and saying all the right things and trying to make your phrases as compact as possible, you actually want to borrow the language from the RFP
Absolutely.
that they have.
Oh, yeah.
Because these word scans are not just for, you know, increasingly more foundations are beginning to use it, but like even with government jobs, like usajobs.gov, like 75 of people get eliminated from even being like considered for a phone interview because they do word scans and they're like, this person obviously didn't even read the job posting. So be sure to actually use the same phrasing so that you're showcasing alignment with their language.
Yes.
so then those are funder specific, so you can't give general.
No, they're funder specific, but there are some key things, like, I mean, this sounds a little like, I mean, there are some key emerging trendy phrases that you kind of want to be aligned in. You don't want to become overly trendy, but there's a lot of things with,
Leverage.
yeah,
Kind of over the word
leverage is all over
leverage.
the place.
Kind of
It's
over
all
the
over
word
the
leverage.
place.
Okay.
And
Maximizing.
I don't
I'm
want
sorry,
to.
she had her hand up.
Oh, go ahead.
Thank you.
So I've gotten feedback on both ends that for one, I haven't been as specific enough in the program and what I'm asking, and I've also had feedback that I didn't get down to the logistics enough.
Yeah.
So, you know, how do you balance that?
That's a really good question. Back to the first point is, this is the main event of this is the central course, right? This is the main event of your proposal. It has to be methodologically sound and it has to be logistically sound. I think that, and this is a very personal perspective, when I'm writing, again, am I taking my readers on a journey? Do they say this program, it makes sense logically, it flows based on the needs that I've articulated up here, based on the best practice models that exist, the ones that don't exist. Maybe you're developing a program with 3 components, where 2 of those 3 components are really widely utilized and really researched, but it's not in your area. And then that one component, you're getting creative because you're like, you know what, I think this is really impacting. If there's less research on it or less practice, you want to throw that in there as well. You want to, how do all those come together? And then the logistics is both of those synthesizing in a way that the methodology is represented through the how. Because the whole program design is the how, right? Well, I'm going to take students on, we are going to do this reading program for 6 weeks over the summer. And in this 6 weeks, we're going to do reading program, we're going to do communication skills, and we're going to do help-seeking behaviors. How do I ask for help if I'm struggling? That's the main program. You're going to have the pillars. We're going to get into goals and objectives in the next slide. But then the logistics of that is, okay, where are the students going to come from? How am I going to recruit them? How are their parents going to get them there? Is there bus transportation? Do I have to pay for bus transportation? Is there lunch? Is there a snack? Are there kids coming from high poverty areas where food might be an issue, right? And so those are the logistics that you want to make sure are sound, right? Both of those, the bigger one's gonna be the methodology, because that's the meat, but the logistics supports that even being able to happen. Because if your program methodology is really strong, but the logistics, like I said, sound cumbersome or wonky, or it's like you're bringing kids from over here, but you didn't even tell me how they're gonna get to your building. And who are they gonna meet? Who are the full-time staff, the part-time staff? You've got different collaborators coming in and doing a financial literacy class for the parents at the end. Where are they coming from? You're just throwing that in at the end, but you didn't describe them. And you'll see a lot of that happening. We'll get more into the partnerships and how you bring that in, and we're also gonna get into, which we're going, the scope of work and the logic model. The logic model is looking at program methodology. The scope of work is a tool to help you guide yourself on the logistics. Okay, any further questions before we go through?
Just a point that will help you is sometimes a prompt will have the word, describe how your program is inclusive, right? Rather than saying, our program is inclusive, right? You want the buzzword in there because that's what was in the prompt. But that's your opportunity for alignment of either methodology and or logistics. Our program is inclusive because, and then it's a powerful kernel. You may not have enough characters or words to pull every little bit of it in, but try to condense that.
15%
That's
of our
the
kids
key.
are coming from new immigrant areas. 15% of our kids are coming from this Northwest Atlanta where the majority of Latino communities live. So you want to pull out those numbers so that, again, it signals that you've got the hold on that. So one more thing, the objective is the how the goal will be achieved. We're going to get more to this, but there's goals, there's objectives, right? And all of that leads to impact or the lack thereof. So we're going to get into that. Does that help? Okay. It's okay. So, okay, program components, right? Getting into, before I even start, all this has to be connected to the needs statement and the best practices. If you're talking about a program design that you have not substantiated the need for in your needs or the why, the needs or the problem scope, you're in trouble. So again, connecting the dots and keep asking yourself and your team that's helping you, if you're lucky enough, again, is how do I know that this is going to work? How do I know that going to the kids at the YMCA is better than during the school hours, right? You have to substantiate that. They're both good models. However, right, you pull those words, but you can't talk about a program design element or component that you have not substantiated the need for. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay, so there's goals. Each goal should be paired typically with at least one objective, which also has to correlate to the impact. Again, these are the buttons, right? The dots being connected. The objectives, right? Sorry. The goals describe in general terms the intended action and outcome you hope to accomplish. These are assertive, right? By the end of the summer, 60% of the kids will have increased their reading levels by 70%. My next question is how. The how is the objective. When you're looking at a home or a structure, what are the supportive beams to the rooms? Those supportive beams, bless you, are the objectives, right? The objectives is the how. Well, we're going to do reading. We're going to do reading a baseline evaluation. Then we're going to do reading. We're going to do phonics. We're going to do one-on-one, small group. Those are your objections as to how you're going to achieve 75% growth in 80% of the kids. You have to be able to flip those, quickly in your mind. The objective, the goal. You have to know the difference, right? Objective is not process. Objectives is the how. It's thinking about it in terms, I remember when I got this light bulb years ago, the objectives are the activities. How are you going to do what you say you're going to do? The how is not the goal. The goal is the what. The goal is what am I going to achieve with this gardening program? What am I going to achieve with this girls empowerment teen night program? The how, the objective is how I'm going to do that, where I'm going to recruit the girls, all those logistical things. Okay? I can see you guys are thinking about this. And then looking at, again, the objectives and activities related. The activities have to be concise and flowing and logical. right? When you think of your kids participating in an after-school program, right? There's a flow, right? The buses come to the schools, the kids get picked up, they go to a after-school center, a rec center, a gym, whether it's high-end athletic club or the Boys and Girls Club where my sister and I went, right? What do you do when you get there? You're received, you have a snack, there's homework time, there's enrichment activities. We were recruited to be on the swim team, right? All those strengths and supportive factors. And all that happens because there was a logical flow of how we got to the Boys and Girls Club to begin with. So you have to think through those logics. Those are the activities. Those are the objectives, right? Any questions? Any clarifications needed so far? I'm giving you a lot of information, but this is the meat and potatoes of your proposal. Yes?
You might get to this later on, but I always find it challenging with partnerships. Some smaller foundations or funders, they just want to know, like, they take your word, and then others want proof, and then others want letters of support.
Right.
So do you have advice on a best practice to make sure that, how to present that in the best manner?
We are gonna get into that,
Okay.
actually, because that is a component of the activities, right? But it's also part of the impact side. The impact will be strengthened because of your partnership. So how do you introduce those? And then either the letters of support, some people just want simple letters of support, again, depending on typically the amount of funding, or they might want MOUs, the memorandums of understanding. Because letters of support can say a whole lot that nobody ever really meant to do, right? And that's absolutely true. The memorandum of understanding is more of a binding document, right? That if this funding gets achieved and garnered, we're gonna come in, we're gonna do this, we're gonna dedicate 20 hours a week to the girls' club to do X, right? But we're gonna get into that for sure.
I have two questions.
Yes.
So on the activities, how many activities should be articulated there? I mean,
All of them, but they have to be concise. So if you have a long list, like do you have an example of your program type?
No, not really. But,
What's your program issue or the issue that you're interested in?
well, I'm not sure at this point. I mean, it would be serving women in some capacity.
Okay.
But, for example, going back to if we were serving young kids at the YMCA, we will list the goals. We want to help them improve their reading skill from one grade level to the next by summer, for example. That would be the goal. And the objectives would be maybe to start have a course, and we have tutorials 2 hours a day or whatever. And then the activities would be hire a teacher,
All of the,
classroom.
yeah, those are the logistics, and we're gonna talk about that. Going back to like the example about women, because you want to serve women, but you don't know how.
Right.
And you're the perfect example, because looking at making sure that you have a clear defined need within the world of women that you're seeking to address. It can be the world of work, it can be mental health, it can be life balance, all those things. But you have to articulate the what with your population group that you're interested in, because the activities flow from that. If you're looking at increasing women's self-confidence, to interview better, to increase economic mobility. That's very specific, and you have to get that specific, because if you ask a funder that, well, I want to help women improve their economic stability, that is an entire life's worth of body of work. So you want to really focus down, how am I going to do that? Do I want the interview process? Do I want to focus on self-confidence? Those are very related. Self-confidence is a huge part of it. So then, when you articulate what you want to do, and that's why I'm pushing you to focus, because you can tell when you look at a program methodology if the solution you're looking to get is not focused. Because you just want to impact women, you want to work with women, you want to have better outcomes, right? But you have to know the what, and then the what, the activities come from that. And then we're going to get into how, before I get your question, those activities have to match the funding you're seeking. Are you asking for a $200,000 program and the funder's only offering $35,000 to get you started on the weekends? That happens a ton, so we're going to get into that.
So I have a second question
Okay.
there too. So the other question is, when you look at the evaluation, what will be evaluated? Will the goals, objectives, and activities be evaluated, or will it just be the
So
activities?
that's a really good question. What's evaluated are the outcomes of the goals. Because the objective and the activities, those support you realizing the goal. So we're gonna say, we're gonna take a group of 15 women in a drug recovery program. And we're gonna put those 15 through an intensive 10-week workforce readiness program, right? And in those 10 weeks, we're gonna work on, the goal is that each woman is going to have 3 interviews to go on. So looking at the goal, that is the goal, at the end of this program, women will have each had 3 interview invitations. That's what you're reporting on. Okay, how close did you get? Was it 100% of the women got 3? And actually, 15% got 5 interviews, and out of those, 13% got a job offer. Or was it out of the 15, 30% achieved 2 interview offers? Those are very different results. But the numbers, you will have the numbers if you're just doing the simple math evaluation. Ma'am, you had a question.
It was actually a kind of a comment to her question when she asked, depending on the funder, they ask for specifics or maybe generalizations or just a vague question. As a funder, if it's a vague request, I would my response would be to supply as much information as possible instead of going back and forth with emails saying, tell me exactly what you need. Well, we would just like a general overview. Okay, well, do you need this, this, and this? Well, okay, we would like, sure, yeah, great, that's great. Instead of going back and forth with questions, just give as much information as possible and let that funder throw out what they want to throw out. That's my personal experience in working for a private foundation.
And it depends. I would say my
I agree,
experience
it
has probably been the
depends.
opposite.
Yeah.
That if you throw out a lot,
Yeah.
it doesn't seem like it's focused enough. But again, you have to know your audience, right?
Yeah.
If you know the foundation and you have to do research on your funder, and this is where FDO comes in, Foundation Directory Online, what other projects or what other grants has your funder given? And then start building out the map of that, which and Lydia can certainly help you learn how to do. If you're looking for partners and collaborators and those letters of support, I think very concise and specific. I'm looking for, financial literacy component will include 4 sessions of 1 hour each, 30 minutes of lecture time and 30 minutes or 45 minutes of group work time where the girls will be working together on a financial budget project for the end of the summer that they'll present to the end of the summer as a group. Very specific, because can you see it?
Yeah.
You can see it versus all this other information. But again, it depends. It absolutely depends. Before we move on to the next slide, again, the journey has to include a no-fuss logistical emphasis. So I had that and I wanted to just kind of end that with, because the girls are going to come. There's going to be one of your partners, maybe a bank, is going to come in and do this financial literacy component. Financial literacy in youth right now is one of the hottest funded topics right now. And they're going to come in, they're going to do a 2-hour workshop 3 times. By the end, the girls will present their own budget that they'll have talked to their parents about and shown to their parents. And you can see that. That's what you want. And it doesn't have to be 5 paragraphs either, because you won't have 5 paragraphs to detail it. But you might have 3-4 lines. Semicolons are really great, right? Okay, focusing, SMART goals. Who here has done SMART goals? Okay, who has not done SMART goals? Don't be shy. Good, okay, so SMART, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. It has to be all of those things. And it doesn't have to be a thesis per goal either, right? Specific, right? We're talking about specific. The financial literacy group, they're going to come in the next 4 weeks. They're going to do 2-hour workshops in the summer program, right? We are measuring the impact. We're going to say, well, how many of the girls before when they came in, it can be simple show of hands that you're writing down or an info sheet. How many of you have ever created your own budget? Do your parents have a budget? Right. So thank you. These are the questions we're asking the girls in our good-time program. But I love to know. But I love the responsiveness. I love you guys are with me. How many of you guys know, if I had to ask you if you know the components of a budget, would you know? So you want to ask that's measurable, because at the end you're going to give them the exact same questions. Don't put any questions in the post that you did not put in the pre. I don't believe how many people do that. You can't measure it. You can't measure the change. So is it measurable? Is it attainable? Is it realistic, basically? Are you trying to do this whole thing in a 45-minute workshop? You know, it takes 20 minutes just to get the girls quiet and like centered, right? So is it attainable? Again, realistic. Is it feasible to say, okay, we have this group of girls for 4 weeks, for 6 hours a day, one day a week, for 2 hours, we're gonna focus on budgets and they're gonna work on the project. Can you build that? Is it feasible? Is it realistic? Yeah, that sounds like we could do it, right? In time bound. This isn't going on infinitum, right? There's 4 weeks that they're coming. The program lasts 6 weeks. They're gonna present it at the end and their parents are gonna attend. You can add those little things. Funders love that stuff. But it has to be all those things. Specific, measurable. When you go back to the example of a women's program, you start thinking about when you don't have a defined need that you're addressing, those become impossible to
Yes.
spell out, right? I want a community garden. I love organics. I love planting. I love being in the dirt. I love all the psychological health benefits that it brings. That tells me nothing,
Yeah, right.
right?
That's right.
Tells me I have a passion for gardening, which I love that you have that. Tells me nothing. And I can be a little cynical because I've been on both sides.
Yeah.
I've been on both sides. And so looking at women's economic opportunities, right? Are we looking at where are we recruiting the women from? Well, they're already in a drug treatment facility, and I've done all this, so I can think of a program in no time. So the women are in this drug treatment facility. We are going to have intensive coaching sessions on not just workforce readiness issues, but self-esteem, trauma. The trauma counseling component adds to the confidence and to the self-esteem. So you have all of that. Are those things specific? Yes. Is it measurable? Can you work with women in drug treatment on workforce readiness when they don't have a counselor? Can you work with women on empowering them to get a job when they don't have counseling, when they live in a drug treatment facility? No.
No.
I can argue it's not going to work. Who's helping them feel better about themselves and cope, right? So is it realistic? No, but you're missing a major component of workforce readiness, right? So you can have 3 of those 5 and still not be strong. That's what I'm getting at. It has to be each, and they can be small, right? The more complex the issue you're dealing with, the more specific it has to be and time bound. Because again, you're not going to solve women who have had lifelong addiction issues in an 18-month program. You're not going to solve all their problems. God knows I've tried.
But
Doesn't happen.
sometimes it feels to you like you really are, and if you get so specific like that, it doesn't, and you just have to trust the process.
Yes,
That
that's a really good point.
it may just be one little thing, but that one little thing will erode this mountain of rock over time.
Right.
And the impact will come. And the reviewers, especially for big funders and federal grants, they get that. So though it seems so rudimentary or simplistic, don't be